Hi, I'm Shane.
And I'm Alex.
And this is Race Per Minute.
Hello and welcome back to another launch reaction, this time for the McLaren MCL36. Now, this was a launch where McLaren were bundling all of their teams together. It wasn't just the F1 team that they were launching, it was also McLaren Arrow SP, which is their IndyCar team, McLaren XE, which is their Extreme E team, and McLaren Shadow, which is their esports team. So it was all bundled together into this sort of just under an hour long launch presentation that we got. Let's just jump in and talk about what we saw from this video then. First off, it was interesting that we had Karen Chandok and Natalie Pinkham. They were presenting, weren't they? Normally see them as they're sort of Sky Sports presenters, aren't they?
Yeah.
So in my head, they're sort of meant to be neutral spectators, but here they're sort of like bigging up a particular team. I suppose it doesn't really matter that much, but it's sort of a bit unusual to have people who are supposed to be neutral bystanders bigging up a particular team, but there we go. But they were being driven to the MTC by Lando and Daniel, and that was the sort of setup for the launch itself. On the way there, Lando mentioned something interesting that I thought he said that the new cars will require a new driving style and it'll be new opportunities for the drivers to show off their skills. And it reminds me that with these new regulations and the fact that the cars will probably be quite different to drive compared to the previous era, you know, we might see a bit of a shake-up in who we consider to be the best drivers. You know, the really quality drivers will be able to overcome that and will be able to adapt, and other drivers may struggle, and drivers that had difficulties before may find themselves right at home. So just a reminder of the shake-up that we could see going into the new season. So Shane, what did you make of this presentation that we saw from McLaren? I know that it's sort of, there was a lot going on that wasn't necessarily F1 related. They did make it the main focus, but there was obviously a lot of stuff that wasn't really anything to do with F1.
Yeah, and me being purely selfish and only wanting to think about or only wanting to see the new MCL36 and only really interested in the F1 kind of presentation, I found personally that the whole launch was a bit prolonged. I was always waiting for that F1 to like jump back up to the top and then talk about the new car and see Daniel and Lando. And as much as I learned a little bit about the Extreme E and how they've got their first women driver, which I think is fantastic. They've got their IndyCar and America, and I saw the drivers and heard them chat. So I learned a little bit, but actually I was only there for the Formula One launch. And as a Formula One fan, I kind of felt like it was a little bit just prolonged, and I was always wanting just to skip to the Formula One bit because it was live and I wasn't quite sure where that came in. I couldn't, so I sat through the whole thing. I know at the end of the day, it was only 45, 50 minutes long, and that's not bad in comparison to some other videos out on YouTube. But still, I felt myself just wanting to just skip to the Formula One bit and see them talk about the car.
Well, it was it's interesting you mentioned obviously they emphasised their first female driver that they've hired, Emma Gilmore. Obviously, she's going to be with their Extreme E team, and it was part of the kind of optimistic and sort of wanting to show some progress, showing a bit of good faith going into the new era as well, because they made a point of wanting to redress the balance in gender equality, obviously promoting their first female driver and putting women in motorsport science and engineering center stage as well, which was a nice touch, I thought. And it was also interesting that everyone in the launch was wearing masks when you compare that to the Aston Martin one where it was indoors and they weren't.
True. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Interesting touch there. They obviously made a point of doing that because they mentioned it as well right at the start. Natalie Pinkham was like, everyone in their orange masks, and sort of a difference in company culture, something like that, shall we say. What I also liked as well is they did a little intro video that was presenting the team's season, and it was nice that they showed the ups and the downs of 2021.
Of course, yes.
They really
I really enjoyed
the two of that. Yeah, that was a nice touch as well.
Yeah, because it would have been really easy for McLaren just to highlight all the good stuff which has happened in 2021. They've had a lot of success, but actually I think it was really pure that they acknowledged those lows, especially, and I don't mean to bring it up because I know there's a lot of McLaren fans listening, but especially Lando at Russia. That was one of the lowest of the lows of the season, and yet they brought it in, they presented it because that's a way of saying we're one team, we live and we learn, and we will, we won't make the same mistake twice, hopefully. So I was really glad that they brought that in, because they're not boasting themselves, they're not bigging themselves up about being this incredible team at the front of Formula One. They are trying hard and they're always learning. And I felt that was very pure from them.
Yeah, I was reminded watching this. I was sort of had my support of this team bolstered watching this as well, because obviously I'm a McLaren fan, and the whole thing was so natural compared to Red Bull and Aston Martin. It really didn't feel anywhere near as stuffy or as awkward as the other two, and it underlined that they are racers, pure and simple. They're not just a big company who also have a racing team. They're not there to sort of just peddle their cars or whatever. They are also a car manufacturer, but it was all about the racing, and it had this kind of very natural, and yeah, it's still a presentation and it still has a certain kind of corporate element to it, but it felt a lot more relaxed and relatable compared to the other presentations that we've seen so far. So it really underlined why I support this team. Yeah, we heard a bit from obviously the McLaren Arrow IndyCar team. There's a little bit of that, talking about Pato O'Ward and their team there. I don't watch IndyCar, so that didn't really mean anything to me, but it was something. We also heard from Ben Daly and Joshua Idowu, their esports team. There's a little bit of that, a little bit talking about Roblox.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware
there must
anyone,
be a sponsor in there somewhere.
I didn't realize anyone under the age of about 12 played Roblox, but I mean, I've never played it myself, so I don't know. And then we had a little chat with Lando and Daniel, and there was a little bit of talk about the new contract for Lando. He obviously starts his 4th season with McLaren.
Yep.
And is going to be going into quite a few more, because he has a contract until, is it 2026, 25? I can't remember now.
I think it was 2025. You carry on talking and I'll double check.
But he's got quite a few years ahead. He's obviously committed to the team. And Daniel was, again, quite forthright about the difficulties that he had last year, but also that he's looking to build on it, and that a lot of the big work that needs to be done has been done. So he says. So we're looking forward to that. It did go on a little bit too long, I felt, but yeah, we had a little sort of connection with those two. Also, another thing, you were talking about the overall launch being a little bit prolonged. One thing that they didn't waste any time on was actually getting to the car reveal, because everyone else did a big sort of like hype up to here's a 10
they just lifted the cloth off.
They were just like, here you go, this is the car now. It's like, oh great, thanks for just getting straight to it.
No, I really enjoyed that. Lando has been extended until 2025.
2025, correct. Okay, yeah. So that's still got quite a few seasons ahead of him, really committed to the team, and obviously thinks that McLaren have got what it takes to challenge for a championship within that time. And I think
mentioned, didn't he? He mentioned that it works both ways.
Absolutely,
and I think that was again really honest and really pure. He respects the team and has faith in the team, and also the team has faith in him. And that doesn't happen very often. You don't see these big contract extensions very often in Formula One, because it's such an ever-changing sport. But actually, in recent years, and especially with the younger drivers coming in, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, and I wouldn't be surprised me if George Russell in the next year or two signs a lengthier contract with Mercedes.
Ocon signed a long contract with Alpine as well.
Ocon has got a long contract, and I think Max has. I'm not sure what Max's contract's like, but I can't see him leaving Red Bull anytime soon. He said at the end of the year, like, he just wants to do this again and again and again and again. So these younger drivers are really being secured for the next, for this era, at least.
And then we heard from Andreas Seidel and Zach Brown, obviously ambitious to fight for more wins and hopefully championships. They were a little bit more forthright than some others about the fact that they really anticipated being much closer to the front as they went ahead. They didn't quite pin all their flags to the mast and say, we're going to win more races this year or anything like that. I think nobody is going to be quite that direct, but an upwards trajectory is definitely what they're aiming for. I don't think they expect this new season to be another year of what they've just had. I don't think they want to settle for another third or fourth place. That was the impression that I got. It was quite an optimistic launch overall for their chances there. So, and I think that's a good goal to have. I don't think they should settle for third or fourth. It is time to start battling up front. Let's talk a little bit about the technical side of this car then, because again, we got to see more or less an actual car. I don't think it's a complete car, but it is more or less an actual car. And well, it's certainly quite different to the Aston Martin. We can see, again, similarly to what we saw with the Haas, it doesn't have that far-reaching side bod bit that the Aston Martin does. It maintains a sort of Coke bottle-esque rear, and just generally seems to be quite a different philosophy to the AMR22. What did you pick out from the technical side of this, Shane?
Well, that was one of the biggest highlights I saw, and I can kind of think I was looking for that straight away because we've already had the 3 cars launch, and we've seen 2 massively different design aspects with like the huge bulky rear end, and then like you said, that Coke bottle rear end where it all tucks in quite nicely. I was kind of wondering where the McLaren would go, whether they would go down the Aston Martin route or similar to the Aston Martin. And then you can get kind of a sense of where that may be the most, the more common design element is, or would they go down like the Haas kind of route where they've tucked in quite tightly? And again, we've only had 4 launches this year, but it is interesting to see that actually it's not quite as tight as the Haas. It is a little bit bulkier, but they do tuck in a lot before the old Aston Martin does. So I think we're just waiting to see what Ferrari and Mercedes kind of produce as well, because that's where everyone's eyes will be looking. If they actually give us a car, then they might do the same as what Red Bull do and just dress up the show car and keep it all under wraps until their show days or until the actual testing itself. But nevertheless, it's one of the 2 designs we've seen, and I think it looks, I don't know, it's hard to say whether it looks good or not, or like whether the design looks like it's going to work or not, because we have no idea. But it's just interesting that there's these 2 design philosophies going forward, and McLaren have gone down one end and Aston Martin have gone down another, and they've got the same engine in the back.
And it looks like they've gone for a different suspension as well. It looks like they're going to have pull rod front suspension instead of push rod, which a lot of other teams have had instead. Don't quite know what to make of that decision, but they've obviously gone for quite a bold new direction for whatever reason. And I think the front wing, certainly in these pictures that have been released, I'm pretty sure that's just the sort of show car front wing. It doesn't. Yeah. It looks different to the one that was actually in the video. So there's obviously a few things that they're maybe hiding there, not quite ready to show their hand in that bit. And also, just in general, the fact that it is tighter going back to the rear of the car, but also has a wider rear section as well. So just a different philosophy in the way that they're taking advantage of the new ground effect. They have that slightly sort of more pinned down nose, whereas the Aston Martin sort of rose up a little bit on the front wing. But again, we don't know exactly how much of this is the real thing. It's all still a little bit up in the air. So yeah, it's very clear though that very different decisions are being made in regards to these regulations, which is very exciting. It's going to be interesting to see who has made the right call, and I guess they themselves don't know for sure until the cars start hitting the track. Okay.
I think additionally as well, the one more thing, the Aston Martin has got these vents or these gills. I think people are starting to talk about them on social media, whereas the McLaren doesn't have any at all. So really, again, interesting to see what team goes where and how these designs are so different. Like the Aston Martin clearly needs more air coming in, or that's like a bit of a vent to circulate air throughout the car, whereas the McLaren it's all very tight, it's all very closed up. So, but who knows? I mean, the Aston Martin is the only car we've seen on track so far, and there are videos on social media if you want to see it go around Silverstone. And that McLaren is only the second car we've seen in real life, essentially. But that could very much be like a show car, and it might be completely different to the car they run at preseason testing. In fact, they didn't really mention preseason testing across the whole of the launch at all. They didn't mention whether this car would be completely different or not. They kind of kept it all under wraps, but in a more of a polite way, instead of Red Bull completely denying the fact that this car has anything to do with their launch at all. So, yeah, it's interesting to see what teams are doing, and it's only going to make preseason testing and those first couple of practice sessions even more exciting.
Yeah, and also they have it's those different intakes on the side pod as well, isn't it? They're just much more elongated, whereas they're very square on the Aston Martin. And again, maybe that ties into the gills that they have. And interesting to see all the different changes that people have made. So let's talk about this livery then. Okay. What do you make of it, Shane? What were your initial thoughts when they released this?
Okay, I'm not sure you're going to like this or not. I wasn't blown away by the livery. I wasn't amazed, but I wasn't disgusted. I was very much like, that's an interesting new look on the McLaren. I think it might take a couple of hours to get used to once you see it a couple of times in like studio light. And then, of course, you've got the renders. I was like, yeah, I like it. Do I think it's amazing? No, but it's definitely not horrendous by any stretch of the imagination. I think what I'm struggling to get my head around is the amount of blue on the McLaren itself. Obviously, part of that, is it that part of that golf sponsorship? Which they had last year at Monaco. Yeah, they ran like a bluey car. Well, everyone knows what car they ran at Monaco last year. Had a lot of blue on it. And it's almost the same type of blue coming back on their main livery this year. I think I like it. But I'm not overly excited about it. I think it will look good on track because it's got those bright contrasting colours. It's also got the black. I mean, it's great for the sponsors because you've got the sponsors all along that black strip along the engine. And the nose itself, but yeah, it's definitely interesting. I like it, but I'm not blown away. Also, they've got some blue. I think that's actually glow in the dark material on the wheels, if I remember reading correctly online.
I think that's just for the. I think that was just on the McLaren Shadow one. That's just the McLaren Shadow car, which is the sports one.
Fair enough. Well, that makes sense.
If they did do that, that would be great. But
well, how well would it work? Because all our night races are under floodlights anyway, so it's not really glow in the dark, is it? But yeah, I think the blue's just going to take me a little bit longer to get used to. But apart from that, it's a good livery. What's your thoughts?
I think I felt very similar to you when they released it. I thought that's pretty bold. Like I appreciate that they've gone for something pretty different because they could have just kept a very, very similar to livery that they had before. And similar, I felt I wasn't totally in love with the old McLaren livery, the sort of new era of papaya ones. I still think the MCL34 is probably the best looking one of that type. But yeah, I didn't mind the 35, and obviously the Golf livery was wonderful, and I thought it looked fabulous. But they were never going to do exactly that again because I think that's just a one-off, and it's not like Golf.
Yeah.
If Golf were like a title sponsor or something, maybe they would have gone for something like that again. But they weren't going to do that without there being a greater commitment from Golf. So they've tried to keep vibes from that, I think. But overall, my initial impression was that the livery is bold, but also a bit busy, especially from the front. And there's kind of almost a bit too much of that blue, and in some unusual places as well. Like there's a strip of blue alongside the halo, and I don't know, it doesn't quite work there. And
yeah,
it's a little bit busy, but I don't dislike it. I think it's just going to be one of those where when you see it on track, it might make a bit more sense. Because again, with these renders, and again with the when they present it in the launch program, it's always under studio lighting, and it's always in renders, it's always sort of perfect, bright white lights, and it never quite appears exactly like that, does it? So sometimes when you see it on track, you're like, oh yeah, no, that makes more sense to me now. And I think it will take some time to get used to it. But I do like it, but I'm not like you. I'm not totally in love with it. And but I appreciate them going for something quite bold. I like the new shade of orange. I like that it's almost sort of even
slightly different, isn't it?
Even more luminescent than before.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's what I do like though is the new race suits and new uniforms for the staff. I think they look fantastic. And then the new overalls are lovely. So yeah, overall I think it's good, but it's going to take some getting used to.
We've got this huge sponsor on the side, Velo, which is obviously a British American tobacco company. It's associated with tobacco, isn't it? This company.
They're a vape company, aren't they? Velo, I thought.
I think so. But anyway, there was talk
it's
about
A Better
how
Tomorrow. That's the one that's sort of masquerading as a different company.
They
are to McLaren what Mission Win Now, or whatever they're called, are to Ferrari. Although they don't sponsor them anymore, I don't think. No,
because obviously that was all picked up about the Marlboro stuff. But this sponsor on the side here won't actually be part of the F1 game car, because obviously it's got that association with tobacco and smoking nevertheless. So the car, which does look busy now, may not look as busy in renders during the actual video game itself, because Velo is across the car quite a bit. looking down it's on the front wing looking down. It's on the end plates of the front wing, and then it's on the side pods of the car as well. So huge sponsor, which won't be available in game. So I wonder if they'll replace it with anything, or whether it will just be blank space. But anyway,
McLaren also had a habit of putting new sponsors on the car for different races. They seem to have sort of region-specific sponsors. So there's that blank space on the engine cover that might get used, and also maybe the Velo spot might get used. It's not exactly certain yet, but they did do a lot of that last year, so maybe they will continue along that trend as well. But I'm glad that they've gone for something kind of different. It would have been easy for McLaren to just keep what they had, and they've gone for something else, and I can appreciate that, and we'll see how it looks when it comes on track.
Yeah, I completely agree. They could have done what Red Bull did and stick with what they know, make very tiny changes and add a different sponsor, and then, launch their car. And like I said, I don't want to repeat myself, but I like it. I do. I think it's just going to take a while to get used to. I wasn't blown away like I was with the Aston Martin, where I thought, that's a good looking car. I'm thinking, this has the potential to be a great looking car, but let's see it on track first with some stuff moved about. And there we have it. That was the MCL36. If you've got any thoughts or questions, you can drop them down in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're following us on Twitter at RacePerMinute, you can get in touch by tweeting us there. Or you can visit www.raceperminute.com and go click on the contact page and then send your question through there. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating or a like. And if you like what we do, please consider subscribing for more wherever you're getting Race Per Minute. And if you really want to support the show and help keep the quality content coming and receive some lovely rewards, you can do by donating as little as £1 a month at patreon.com/raceperminute. Right, we're 4 down, 6 to go, almost halfway through the first little mini series we've got of this season. Of course, we've got the launches and then pre-season testing, and then we get onto the traditional post-race discussions. I can't wait. So much to do this year. But Alex, what is up next? I believe it's tomorrow at time of recording. The 14th of February is the next launch, but I can't for the life of me remember who it is.
It is AlphaTauri on Monday. And we've also got Williams on Tuesday, I believe.
And then there's something on
Ferrari and Mercedes later on in the week.
Interesting indeed. I feel like AlphaTauri has the potential to be very similar to the Red Bull, not in design wise, but they'll keep it very similar to last year, especially as AlphaTauri is this fashion company. If they've designed their car around their main sponsor, which is what they have done, or the livery at least, I expect it to say very similar. But there again, I thought the McLaren was going to say pretty similar to last year, and they've thrown blue all over it. So who knows what will happen going forward?
Yeah, I think they've developed a kind of an iconic look for themselves, and similarly to Red Bull, they kind of kept that continuity. So I'll be surprised if we see something completely different. It will be interesting to see if they do the same thing in Red Bull, where they just do the show car. I wonder if AlphaTauri will also keep things under wraps.
Because they've got Karen.
What I don't anticipate is a huge launch, because they haven't really done that in the past. They sort of do a quick sort of video of fashion show thing, and then they kind of leave it at that, really. So we'll see. Maybe they'll go for something different as well. We'll have to wait till Monday to find out. But I hope you join us for that. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.